The right has been arguing as to over whether or not we should have dropped the bombs on Japan. The answer is yes. Anyone who's arguing against it is literally historically illiterate. And we were talking about Operation Ketsugo, which is what Japan was. They were getting ready to turn their entire population into plainclothes soldiers, where you wouldn't be able to know the difference. I mean, this is a simple fact of any student of history. I mean, that's and we had Operation Downfall. They had Ketsugo. Operation Downfall was the United States' plan if Japan was to invade. And our casualty estimates were something like 500,000, almost up to 1 million, just ours alone. That doesn't include the number that was being estimated for Japan, because they were planning on mobilizing with Ketsugo at least 5 million men, and they were going to have over 6 million in total when Ketsugo was fully realized. And they were every male, it was from age 15 to 60 was going to be a soldier, and every female age 17 to 40 was going to be a soldier. And this was over a quarter of Japan's entire population that they were going to mobilize into becoming plainclothes civilian soldiers. That's why that report went out that there were no civilians in Japan, and it was getting into Operation Ketsugo. And a lot of people who have been arguing against the nuclear bomb, again, historically illiterate people, were somehow like making up some stupid thing that it was like a racial thing or something that our military put out, which was so stupid. But I mean, this would be the people that they were mobilizing would be in the targeted invasion area. So the United States had a plan. Japan had a plan. Apparently, too, we had created a whole bunch of Purple Hearts in preparation for this. And it's apparently a huge, we created this massive production. We manufactured a whole bunch of Purple Hearts that we still apparently have in our possession in anticipation of having to do of Operation Downfall. And so when you look at the casualties from dropping the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima compared to the casualties that absolutely would have occurred with Ketsugo and Operation Downfall, there's not even a comparison. You're looking at, and this is what geopolitics is, it looks at the best numbers. You're looking at a cost of like several hundred thousand to multi-million casualties. That is indisputable. And the other thing, too, is I really feel like for the people that pretend to be America first, you're not arguing it. Because America first doesn't give a rat's ass, especially in wartime. It's the other country's responsibility to care about your citizens. And this is war. This is why it's always a last resort. Because in a war, it's America first. And in a war, it's our civilians, our citizens first. What is going to minimize our casualties? What is going to minimize our loss of resources? Either be America first or don't be American first. But don't sit here and use the slogan and act all fist in the air, MAGA or whatever else, and then argue this type of stuff. What's the matter with you? This is not an America first stance to argue that we should not have limited the casualties, the known casualties of several hundred thousand, compared to the absolute casualties that we know would have occurred, multi-million with Operation Downfall and Ketsugo, by not dropping the bomb, and act like that somehow that's an America first position to say that we should have lost millions more so we could virtue signal about not dropping a bomb. Sit down. A lot of people need to be hitting the books instead of hitting the keyboard on social media. A lot of people need to be hitting the books instead of hitting the podcast circuit. Good grief. It's embarrassing. It's especially embarrassing to watch anybody older than me talk about this stuff and not get it right. History's not hard. You know, all of these facts are hidden in things they call books. But that's facts. We would have lost millions upon millions upon millions of people. And Ketsugo was an absolute thing. The Allied invasion, the targeted area of invasion that we would have done the land invasion on were some Japanese islands. They were the home islands, and it was near Honshu. They were the proposed landing sites for that operation. It would have been horrific. It would have been horrific. And my grandfather would have been one of the individuals involved. fact, I think everybody over in the Pacific would have been. And it was expected. There was discussion that would have involved British participation. And there were several different sub-ops with it. But that's, I mean, ultimately, these operations, you would have seen. In fact, Japanese propaganda in support of Katsugo was, quote, "The sooner the Americans come, the better. 100 million die proudly." That was their slogan the summer of 1945. And again, don't forget, after Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there was the attempted coup. They were going to overthrow parts of the government that wanted to surrender. There were major factions in the Japanese government that did not want to surrender. They wanted to keep going. So for those people who thought that this was going to end peacefully, it never was. This was literally the only option left. And people who think otherwise, who thought the Japanese could be reasoned with, are also historically illiterate about the 20 years preceding their involvement in World War II.